what if the primary goal of your doctor wasn't, to treat you when you get sick, but to systematically engineer your body so a disease literally cannot occur?
I mean, think about that for a second. We are just so completely used to the idea that medicine is, well, a reaction.
Right, like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor points to it and just starts working on a fix.
Exactly. You wait for the break, or you wait for the tumor, you wait for the blood sugar to spike, and really only then you deploy the absolute marvels of modern science to fix the catastrophe.
But what if that entire paradigm is just completely backwards? Today, we're exploring a reality where the medical system fundamentally shifts from treatment after disease to engineered non-occurrence.
Yeah. We are unpacking a freshly drafted position paper for this deep dive. It's dated July 10th, 2026 by Dr. Lev Nemotin, and it's titled Medicine of Future.
And our mission today is to basically interview the concepts within this highly technical, honestly almost sci-fi blueprint. We're going to look at the science, the economics, and the technology required to, intercept biology before a disease even has a chance to start.
Which is a massive shift.
Yeah.
It completely redefines what a doctor even is.
Really does. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with Nemotin's rather stark critique of our current medical economy.
Yeah, so the paper opens by highlighting this structural flaw in how we think about health economics. Nemotin argues that our present system is brilliant after a catastrophe, but structurally. It relies on the sick body as its primary economic event.
And the sheer scale of this is just hard to conceptualize. He backs this up with some absolutely staggering numbers.
Oh, the numbers are wild.
Right. In 2024, U.S. national health expenditure hit $5.3 trillion. That was like 18% of the entire GDP.
18%. Just let that sink in for a minute.
And according to the CDC, 90% of those expenditures are driven by chronic and mental health conditions. I mean, that is a massive economy built entirely on things going wrong in your body.
And the crucial point he makes here is that, this isn't some cynical conspiracy. Doctors do not want their patients to suffer.
No, of course not.
But we have a system design problem. Every physical asset, the hospitals, MRI machines, surgical suites, and the entire pharmaceutical market, it's all arranged around diagnosing and managing established disease.
Right, like hospitals literally need full beds to remain solvent. Device companies need their surgical devices utilized.
Exactly. Insurance companies price their risk models based on this endless, totally predictable cycle of physical breakdown.
It really reminds me of an auto repair shop. Imagine you have a neighborhood mechanic who is an absolute genius.
Okay, I'm with you.
They can fix a blown head gasket, rebuild a shattered transmission, perfectly patch up a car after a massive wreck. But because their entire livelihood, their mortgage, paying their employees, all of it depends on broken cars rolling into the shop.
Right, they need the broken cars.
Exactly. So the auto repair industry as a whole has absolutely zero incentive to design a car engine that never breaks down in the first place.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And that structural misalignment creates what Nemotin calls a vicious circle of runaway action.
Or a vicious circle.
The more prevalent a disease becomes in a population, the more infrastructure is built to manage it. And then that infrastructure requires massive cash flow to maintain.
Which just drives up the national healthcare budget to the point of unsustainability. The system is literally feeding on its own failure.
Precisely. It's brilliant at rescue, but terrible at true prevention.
So identifying that structural flaw feels pretty intuitive, but actually fixing it, that requires a monumental technological leap.
That's a huge leap, yeah.
If the old core of medicine was treatment, and we want this new core of non-occurrence, how do we actually do that? Nemotin makes it very clear. He's not just talking about telling you to eat your vegetables, get 8 hours of sleep, and go for a jog.
No. What's fascinating here is how he defines this shift from basic wellness to aggressive biological engineering.
Right, because wellness is still important, obviously.
Of course. Diet and exercise remain foundational. But the new scientific core, the massive R&D shift, is toward what he calls preventive-molecule.
Preventive-molecules. So what does that actually look like?
Well, it changes the fundamental target of pharmacology. Instead of trying to salvage a heart muscle after a heart attack has already caused irreversible tissue death, the goal is to initiate early cellular interception.
Let's break down what a preventative molecule actually is, because he describes it as a single molecule, or like a soup of a few molecules, designed specifically to stop a disease trajectory before it manifests.
Molecular soup, yeah.
And he points out that this isn't purely science fiction. We're already doing this in somewhat fragmented, primitive ways, right? like with folic acid.
That's a great example.
When pregnant women take folic acid, they were using a specific molecule to ensure proper neural tube closure in the developing fetus. They are literally engineering the non-occurrence of spina bifida.
Yeah, and another really powerful example he cites is pre-EP, the pre-exposure prophylaxis used for HIV.
Oh, right.
By maintaining a specific concentration of antiretroviral molecules in the bloodstream, the virus is just blocked from establishing an infection, even if exposure occurs.
Wow, yeah, so the disease literally cannot take root.
Exactly. We also see this with nirsevimab, which is a long-acting antibody given to infants.
For RSV, right.
Yep. Instead of waiting for a baby to catch RSV and just hoping their immune system can fight off severe lung inflammation, we introduce a molecular shield that temporarily neutralizes the virus on contact.
He also mentions semaglutide, which is super fascinating because, it's mostly known in the mainstream for weight loss.
Right, the Ozempic craze.
Yeah, but it's now approved specifically to reduce major cardiovascular events in obese adults who already have cardiovascular disease. It's a molecule intervening systemically to protect the cardiovascular architecture before the catastrophic heart attack happens.
And those existing treatments are really just the ancestors of this new paradigm. Nemotin's future targets are where the science gets incredibly precise.
Like what? What's the future look like?
For instance, he envisions anti-misfolding molecules to intercept Alzheimer's disease.
Anti-misfolding molecules. Okay.
Understand the mechanics of this. Think of the proteins in your brain, like microscopic origami. They have to fold into highly specific 3D shapes to function.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If they fold the wrong way, they clump together to plaques, and that eventually destroys neurons. Anti-misfolding molecules would act like tiny chemical scaffolds.
Oh, wow. So they bind to the proteins.
Yeah, they bind to them to physically ensure they maintain their correct origami shape. It halts the disease decades before cognitive decline even begins.
He also talks about DNA repair stabilizers to intercept cancer initiation. The idea that we could have a molecular proofreader cruising through our cells, just like fixing mutations before they can cascade into a tumor.
It's incredible to think about.
Wait, hold on, though. I'm imagining taking a daily pill or a molecular soup for a disease I don't even have and maybe might never get, just based on a prediction.
Right, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a fast track to turning the entire population into permanent patients, risking massive side effects for absolutely no reason.
It's a very valid concern. And the paper directly addresses that exact danger. Prescribing highly active molecular soups blindly to the general population would be disastrous.
Right, you'd just be poisoning people.
You would expose millions of healthy people to chemical toxicity, drive up immense costs, and create crippling medical anxiety. The entire engineered non-occurrence model completely collapses without a flawless targeting system.
So you can't just guess.
No, you have to know exactly who requires intervention, precisely which molecules they need, and the exact biological moment to deploy them.
Which brings us to the targeting mechanism. To avoid blindly poisoning people, Nemotin introduces the concept of the personal disease risk map.
The risk map. This is where it gets really data heavy.
And just to be clear, this goes light years beyond that basic family history questionnaire you fill out on a clipboard in a waiting room today.
Oh, absolutely. The risk map relies on vast data convergence. It layers your inherited genetics and your pharmacogenomics.
Which is what, exactly?
Pharmacogenomics is the study of how your specific genetic variants affect your body's ability to metabolize and respond to specific drugs.
Okay, got it.
And then, crucially, it layers on longitudinal biomarkers.
Let's define what we mean by longitudinal biomarkers for the listeners. We're talking about continuously tracking things like blood proteins, your microbiome signals, and your epigenetic age.
Yes, epigenetics is a huge piece of this.
It's so fascinating. If your DNA is a massive instruction manual, your epigenome is the set of chemical highlighters and redaction markers that tell your cells which genes to actually read and which to ignore.
That's a great way to picture it.
And your epigenetic age measures how much biological wear and tear those markers are showing, completely regardless of your chronological age.
Exactly. So by continuously analyzing all those layers, the system categorizes your individual risk for specific diseases into 4 actionable buckets.
4 buckets. Okay, what's the first one?
First is high genetic or family risk. This indicates a disease trajectory that's strongly driven by your inherited biology.
Second is high biomarker trajectory. This means that regardless of your genetics, the physical biological process of a disease is actively starting in your body right now.
Right, even if you feel perfectly fine and show zero traditional symptoms.
Okay, third bucket.
Third is modifiable exposure-driven risk. In this bucket, your environment, dietary intake, toxic exposures, or chronic stress are the primary mechanisms driving the disease probability.
And finally, the fourth bucket is low current risk, which is honestly equally important because it tells the physician to back off.
Yeah, exactly. Do no harm.
Right. In this category, you simply monitor the biomarkers and actively avoid unnecessary molecular interventions.
Now, navigating all of this inherited risk leads Nemotin to propose a concept he calls HelixBridge.
HelixBridge. This is an upstream gate, specifically a voluntary preconception genetic screening service.
Yes, the idea is to identify severe inherited reproductive risks before a pregnancy even occurs.
Literally preventing catastrophic childhood diseases at the starting line. But man, the ethical guardrails around this concept have to be ironclad.
They are paramount, and the paper sets strict limitations. History has shown us the dark, horrific consequences of genetics being weaponized.
Definitely.
Nemotin explicitly insists that this model must definitively reject coercion, social ranking, or any form of eugenics.
It has to be completely voluntary and focused on health, not like designer babies.
Exactly. In this framework, genetic data is strictly a navigation map used to target the prevention of severe biological suffering. It is never a measure of destiny, and it is never a metric for evaluating human worth.
That distinction is so crucial. But taking a step back and looking at the sheer mechanics of this system, we are talking about tracking longitudinal biomarkers, epigenetic changes, complex pharmacogenomics, and molecular interactions across billions of people.
It's an unfathomable amount of data.
Right. We're talking about mapping every individual's lifetime biological trajectory. The sheer volume of data processing required is wildly beyond human capability. No human doctor, no matter how brilliant, has the brain power to calculate all of those intersecting variables during a 15-minute consultation.
It's literally impossible for a human.
So how does this actually function? Who or what is doing the math?
It doesn't function without artificial intelligence. AI is the mandatory, non-negotiable accelerator for this entire paradigm.
Here's where it gets really interesting. AI in this vision isn't just a smart filing cabinet for your medical records, and it's not just a chatbot summarizing your symptoms.
No, it is the core biological architect.
It's playing 4D chess with our biology.
Exactly. The computational power of AI takes on tasks that human researchers simply cannot scale. Think about the process of discovering a disease's origin mechanism.
It takes decades sometimes.
Right. A human researcher might spend a lifetime trying to understand one protein interaction. AI can mine millions of disparate data points across thousands of biological pathways simultaneously.
To find the exact cellular misfire that begins a disease, to put a visual to that, imagine trying to find a single typo in a library of 1 billion books.
Good luck doing that by hand.
Right. A human doctor can't do it. But AI can read the entire library in seconds, find the exact typo, and rewrite the sentence before the book even goes to print.
And Nemotin points out that the real-world evidence for this scale of AI intervention is already here.
Oh yeah, he references the AlphaFold protein structure database, right?
Yeah. Yes. For 50 years, predicting how a protein would fold into its 3D shape was one of biology's grandest challenges. AlphaFold used AI to predict the structure of over 200 million proteins.
200 million? That's insane.
It basically mapped the entire protein universe in a fraction of the time it would take human scientists. AI is also running digital trial simulations now.
So testing things virtually before humans ever take them?
Exactly. Before a new preventive molecular soup is ever given to a human being, AI models the physical physics of those molecules interacting with cellular structures over simulated decades.
It tests for toxicity and efficacy in a digital twin environment, which is why regulatory bodies like the FDA are already issuing guidance on integrating AI into drug development.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, this computational engine is what makes it possible to build a true learning health system.
Walk us through how a learning health system works dynamically for the patient, because it's not just a static prescription, right?
Not at all. In our current system, medical knowledge moves slowly through clinical trials and published papers. In a learning health system, the feedback loop is instantaneous and continuous.
So your personal disease risk map is not just some static PDF file sitting on a server.
Exactly. Let's say you begin a customized preventive-molecule regimen. The AI continuously monitors your longitudinal biomarkers, your blood proteins, your inflammatory markers.
And it's doing this while looking at everyone else, too.
Right. It simultaneously analyzes the real-time responses of millions of other people globally who are on similar biological trajectories.
Wow.
If the AI detects that your cellular response is deviating by even a fraction of a percent from the optimal path, it dynamically adjusts the formulation of your molecular soup to ensure the disease remains impossible.
It is genuinely breathtaking to think about medicine operating at that level of precision. But man, it brings us crashing into a massive practical wall.
Economics.
Yes. If AI and molecular R&D actually achieve this, if we systematically eliminate massive amounts of chronic disease, how does the massive medical economy survive?
It's a huge disruption.
If a hospital's revenue relies on treating heart attacks and late-stage cancers, how do you bill for a disease that didn't happen?
This requires a complete redesign of both the clinical workflow and the economic incentives that undergird the entire healthcare industry.
Okay, let's look at the clinic first. Nemotin says the first visit with your doctor no longer starts with the classic question, what brings you here today?
Right, because if you are feeling symptoms, the system has already failed.
Exactly. Instead, the baseline question becomes, what diseases are trying to manifest in your biology over the next 30 years?
Which fundamentally alters the identity of the clinician. They are no longer mechanics fixing broken parts. They become disease trajectory engineers.
The paper even lists entirely new medical specialties that will have to emerge to support this. We will see preventative pharmacologists who specialize purely in designing those molecular soups. We'll see disease origin engineers and AI health engineers whose entire job is translating the AI's predictive models into actionable patient care.
But again, who pays for this?
Exactly. Insurers and governments currently pay for physical procedures and late-stage rescue drugs. To make non-occurrence profitable, Nemotin argues they must create long-term risk contracts and outcome-based reimbursement models.
They have to literally pay for preserved organ function and the mathematical probability of avoided hospitalizations.
This raises an important question, though. How do we honestly measure the value of a disease avoided? Nemotin references the work of prominent health economists Cohen, Moomin, and Weinstein here.
Yes, they famously warned that prevention doesn't always save money in the strict short-term accounting sense.
Right, because if you give 1 million people a daily $10 preventative molecule to stop 10 heart attacks, the cost of the molecules might mathematically exceed the cost of just treating the 10 heart attacks.
Precisely. We cannot rely on simplistic, utopian promises that giving everyone preventive molecules is always cheap. The AI infrastructure and the molecular R&D will be staggeringly expensive.
So why do it economically?
Because the alternative, endlessly expanding late-stage treatment facilities and managing the chronic collapse of an aging population, is fundamentally unsustainable for any civilization.
We literally can't afford the current trajectory.
Right. Society has to make a philosophical and economic decision to pay for the validated reduction in human suffering, rather than just the transactional cost of the intervention.
Which makes me wonder about the pharmaceutical industry. If I'm listening to this and I work in pharma, I'm thinking, wait, do we just go out of business if nobody needs chronic disease management pills anymore?
The industry doesn't vanish. It pivots. Nemotin is very clear that the pharmaceutical industry is not the enemy. They simply respond to the incentives they are given.
So change the incentives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Under this new model, they shift their massive R&D budgets away from competing to make the marginally best late-stage cancer therapeutic. Instead, they compete to build the most profitable, safest, and most effective preventive molecule platforms.
The global market just transforms from managing sickness to preserving health. Okay, let's take a breath and recap the sheer scale of the journey we've just been on.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. Dr. Nemotin's blueprint takes us from an economy that is structurally forced to wait for physical catastrophe to strike to an AI-driven, genetics-guided molecular shield that intercepts disease at its very biological origin.
It demands a radical reimagining of both the prestige and the fundamental purpose of medical civilization.
So what does this all mean? Well, I want to leave you with a mind-bending implication that builds directly on something Nemotin mentions almost in passing.
Oh, the aging pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah.
In his pipeline of diseases that we need to systematically intercept, he lists aging-related frailty as a specific biological target. We're talking about muscle loss, cellular senescence, where aging cells essentially turn into zombie cells that refuse to die, and instead secrete inflammatory toxins, and mitochondrial decline, where the power plants of your cells simply start shutting down.
The implication there is that biological aging is not a mystical process.
Mhm.
It is fundamentally a series of mechanical cellular failures, just like any other disease.
Exactly. So if we utilize AI and highly targeted molecular soups to systematically intercept cancer, intercept Alzheimer's, intercept metabolic collapse, and intercept cellular senescence before they can even initiate.
Does the fundamental human experience of growing old stop being a biological inevitability?
Does aging simply become an elective condition?
I mean, the mechanics of biology suggest that if you can perfectly replace or repair the components before they degrade, the machine does not have to break.
Think about that the next time you get an X-ray or a routine blood panel. What if, instead of waiting for the jagged white line to appear on the screen, medicine was just silently, constantly engineering your biology so the break was mathematically impossible? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.